What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks onto a talk show set and refuses to play by the usual rules? What happens when a host used to controlling the conversation suddenly loses that control in spectacular fashion? The tension that erupted between Matt Damon and Joy Behar on The View wasn't just uncomfortable television. It was a masterclass in how quickly a celebrity interview can spiral into something nobody expected. Before we dive into exactly what was said that had the entire studio audience gasping, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and drop a comment below telling me which side you're on after you hear this whole story. Trust me, you're going to have opinions. The View's iconic table was set like it always is. Co-hosts in their familiar seats, studio lights blazing, audience relaxed and ready for what they assumed would be another routine celebrity appearance. Matt Damon walked out to enthusiastic applause, smiling, waving, projecting that familiar ease that comes with decades in the spotlight. Joy Behar welcomed him warmly, her grin suggesting playful banter rather than confrontation. The first few minutes followed the expected rhythm. Light jokes, a few comments about his latest film, reflections on the creative process. Everything felt safe, controlled, and predictable. That sense of comfort evaporated quickly when Joy shifted the conversation toward Matt's relative quiet on social issues. The mood in the room changed almost instantly. Her question was framed as curiosity, but it carried weight. Why, compared to other celebrities, had he been so reserved? Didn't someone with his platform have a responsibility to speak up more? Matt didn't bristle right away. He paused, chose his words carefully, and challenged the assumption itself. He suggested that constant public activism could be performative, driven more by applause than impact, and that restraint could sometimes be the more responsible choice. The audience reacted immediately, a mix of murmurs and surprise. Joy seized on the word performative, pressing him to clarify. Matt remained calm but firm, explaining that he respected real, sustained work far more than reactive statements. He argued that adding noise to complex conversations without full understanding could do more harm than good. That's when Joy countered with the idea that silence itself can be complicity, especially for someone why. From that moment on, the interview stopped being an interview. It became a confrontation. Matt pushed back harder, saying irresponsible speech carried consequences too, and that outrage culture rewarded speed over thought. Joy implied that his position came from comfort, that he could afford to stay quiet while others bore the cost. The audience audibly reacted, and Matt straightened in his chair, the tension now unmistakable. What had begun as polite disagreement was rapidly turning into something raw and personal, and everyone in the studio could feel it. Matt called Joy's implication what it was to him, a judgment disguised as a question. He pointed out that she was assuming what he did or didn't care about based solely on what was visible to the public. He challenged the idea that private work, quiet support, or behind-the-scenes involvement somehow counted less. Joy leaned back, arms crossed, inviting him to explain himself. What exactly was he doing that people didn't see? Matt refused. He said he didn't know a public accounting of his conscience so others could decide if he had earned the right to speak selectively. That, he argued, was the very problem. The belief that activism only mattered if it was loud and visible. Joy pushed back again, reminding him that he was a public figure who benefited enormously from attention and fame. Didn't that come with obligations? Matt acknowledged the obligations, but insisted one of them was not to misuse influence. He accused the culture of forcing people into binary boxes, allies or enemies, good or bad, without room for nuance. That accusation landed heavily. Joy responded that nuance was a luxury, especially for people who hadn't experienced real hardship or discrimination. That's when Matt's restraint visibly cracked. He told her she didn't know his life, his experiences, or what he'd seen. He accused her of doing exactly what she was criticizing, making assumptions and presenting them as fact. Then he went further, saying she had come into the interview with an agenda and was using him as a prop to make her point. The word theater hung in the air, and the audience split audibly between applause and shock. A co-host tried to intervene, but Joy refused to move on. She insisted she was simply doing her job, asking tough questions. Matt pushed back, drawing a line between genuine curiosity and cross-examination. He accused her of crossing that line minutes earlier. The exchange grew sharper, faster, more personal. Joy suggested that if he couldn't handle scrutiny, maybe he shouldn't come on talk shows. Matt replied that he could handle questions, just not bad faith ones. The studio atmosphere was now electric. Co-hosts exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to stop the exchange or let it play out. Joy defended her role, pointing out that guests came on The View knowing they would be challenged. Matt leaned forward, eyes locked on her, and said what bothered him wasn't challenge, but the lack of good faith. Tough questions, he argued, required listening, not just waiting to argue back. When he asked if she'd actually heard anything he'd said or was just reloading, the audience erupted again. The divide in the room was now undeniable. Joy bristled at the suggestion, reminding Matt she'd interviewed thousands of guests without being accused of having an agenda. She argued that scrutiny was the price of fame. Matt responded that scrutiny wasn't the issue. Framing was. He said her initial premise was already negative, implying that quiet equaled failure. That, he argued, wasn't neutral questioning but ideology. One of the co-hosts attempted to calm things by asking Matt to explain his philosophy more clearly, without the tension. Matt accepted, at least briefly. He explained that responsible use of a platform meant thoughtfulness, real work, amplifying others, and acknowledging limits. For a moment, it seemed like the storm might pass. But Joy wasn't satisfied. She called his approach convenient, a way to avoid taking risks or heat. That was the breaking point. Matt delivered his most forceful statement yet. He called the demand for constant public statements performative nonsense, more about appearing good than doing good. He accused the culture of shallow commentary and accused Joy of enforcing ideological conformity rather than fostering real discussion. The audience exploded, cheers and boos colliding. Joy, visibly furious, denied enforcing anything, citing her long career and diverse guests. Matt challenged her again, pointing out that she'd offered him only two choices: agree or be labeled complicit and cowardly. That, he said, wasn't openness. Joy fired back that maybe there really was a right answer, and neutrality was weakness. Matt seized on that, saying it proved his point. He accused her of trying to bully him into agreement. The word bully changed everything. Joy's face flushed. Co-hosts rushed to intervene. But the moment had already detonated. Joy accused him of playing the victim. Matt calmly explained why the setup was unwinnable for him. Walk off and be difficult. Push back and be aggressive. He said she knew it too. Joy mocked the idea, but Matt asked whether she was even listening to herself anymore. The tension was unbearable. A co-host pleaded for a pause, but Joy insisted her integrity was under attack. Matt replied simply that it was, because of her behavior. He said her reaction to being called out said more than anything else. The audience sat stunned, aware they were watching something far beyond normal daytime television. Joy stood up, the scrape of her chair cutting through the silence. She defended her career, her willingness to face anger and criticism, and her refusal to accept polished answers. If that made her a bully, she said, she could live with it. Matt remained seated, unflinching. He told her it was a speech that avoided the actual substance of his criticism. He accused her again of deflection, of demanding accountability from others while resisting it herself. Joy sat back down, tension radiating from her posture, and reframed the issue once more. She pointed to Matt's wealth, success, and influence, asking what message his silence sent to young people. Matt responded that the message should be about thoughtfulness, humility, and real action, not constant performance. He argued that moral signaling without substance taught the wrong lesson. The co-hosts tried desperately to regain control, but the damage was irreversible. The conversation had crossed a line from debate into exposure. Viewers could see two fundamentally different philosophies colliding in real time. One saw public pressure and loud advocacy as moral necessity. The other saw them as shallow and coercive when stripped of nuance. As the segment limped toward a commercial break, the audience remained divided, buzzing with whispered arguments and stunned expressions. There was no clear winner, no tidy resolution, just a raw, unscripted moment, where the usual rules of talk show choreography had completely fallen apart. When the cameras finally cut, it was clear this wasn't just another viral clip. It was a moment that forced viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about power, platforms, and performative morality. And long after the applause signs went dark, one thing was certain. Nobody who watched that exchange walked away without an opinion.